All right, folks. Seems like we are live, so I'm not too sure how the audio feed is. I just want to make sure everyone can see uh, or can hear, both hear and see. So if you're in the audience, go ahead and say something. I have Mr. David Laderberg, my VP of operations. Actually en route to join us. But yesterday, GM Tesla dropped some big news with regards to of course, switching over to the Tesla NACS charging standard. We wanted to basically kind of take a deeper dive approach into this as charging station professionals. Like this is all that we do is all things EV charging. Overall, what we wanted to kind of do is just kind of bring and shed to light some of the thoughts that we've been, kind of pondering over the past really 18 hours or so since we've heard the announcement. So one of the things first, like back in 2012 is when like Tesla originally released the supercharging standard, and that was basically off of the debut of the Model S. And so at the time, when it comes to like DC fast charging standards, we had, CHAdeMO and we had Tesla in both of those. And so as a result, the Chinese standard or the Asian standard with Japan-made electric vehicles, mainly the Nissan Leaf, that like the CHAdeMO was really starting to build out their infrastructure with firms like EVgo and a bunch of other firms. You would see the charging station infrastructure almost at its infancy, and basically for a while there it was Tesla and CHAdeMO, like how many ports there were. When CCS was introduced to the game, basically, I think it was somewhere around like 2015 or so. The SAE CCS charging standard really helped out a lot of people, and you started seeing these manufacturers kind of go towards that angle. But for the most part, what we've seen is over time, CCS has kind of really cannibalized CHAdeMO. So now CHAdeMO is like maybe 10% of the charging ports out there. CCS is, the majority of them. But then you have the Tesla charging standard, which was, dwarfed the CCS, the amount of ports that were actually out there in the wild. And so, when you're looking at GM and Ford, they are automakers. They're not gas stations. They don't want to be in the gas station business. That's why they don't have an actual gas station. That's why you go to a Shell or a Exxon or you go to those Valero. You go to those gas stations. You don't actually go to a GM gas station or a Ford gas station. They don't want to be in the gas game. And I think with Tesla's vertical integration, Tesla's already talked about becoming an actual utility company. They are doing literally the utility thing right now in Texas as we speak. So majority of the time we knew that it was coming. It was just, we thought it was going to be implemented with maybe adapters or something, but these two announcements were huge. We started pondering the idea once Ford announced their partnership with Tesla. But GM, that definitely, this is a nail in the coffin, I think, when it comes to the charging standard. The problem is that the way that the NEVI funds and all of the IRA funds, when it comes to the infrastructure rebuild, were being taken up, that basically the language inside there from the Department of Transportation, they're all specifically stating the standards be the CCS standards on that infrastructure. And if three major automobile manufacturers that manufacture EVs, and none of them are going to be using CCS. Now, CCS basically just turned an older, antiquated technology overnight. Basically, that's exactly what we're seeing here. So, what does it do for the rest of the SAE J1772 CCS charging industry? I don't know. We don't know. The good thing is that like my company, Smart Charge America, couldn't be in a better position to actually receive the news. Over 90% of our business actually comes and is generated from Tesla, our Tesla partnership ever since 2012. So we've been doing business with Tesla over a decade now. And so we will continue to do business with Tesla in both the residential, commercial, and servicing realm. And so we're hoping, this news is basically going to accelerate that. What's the deal with ChargePoint? Companies like EVgo, I think they can't build the infrastructure out fast enough because they're relying on private funds, entities to be able to push their product. They're not pushing their product themselves. They don't have a revenue source being injected in order for them to actually fund that. So it'll be interesting to see. Stocks are already down with ChargePoint and EVgo. Um, I mean, as far as Electrify America, come on, guys. I mean, Electrify America was a court mandated. Electrify America was a court mandated uh, fine that was basically put on uh, what is it, Volkswagen for the Dieselgate scandal. It was a court mandated fine. So after Volkswagen exhausted their $10 billion, over the past few years, they're not really fast to move or fast to inject any more money into that court mandated fine business solution that they created with Electrify America. That's why a lot of them are. Kind of stranded assets. A lot of them don't work. You have a lot of reliability, uptime issues with that particular network. And I think now it's only going to get worse. Now, of course, this is a big announcement. I think it's like a frenzy. I think everyone's kind of really excited about the announcements. But overall, I think it's just going to take time to play out. But it'll be interesting, the consumers' decision making now going forward on how they actually start planning out and making the decisions, because ultimately that's what's gonna kind of, I guess, boil down to. So keep in mind, I mean, government grants can only go so far. I mean, they're slow to adopt the grants. And they're dependent on the private sector, in a lot of those cases, to be able to actually deploy those fast charging those fast charging stations out there. So a lot of the NEVI funds and a lot of the state requirements, they're probably going to have to be rewritten or adjusted based on that. So the thing that you guys have to understand is that Tesla made it, and they did it without government help. They did government help, before they actually get themselves going, but they ran out of the tax, I guess, the tax credit stuff back in 2018, maybe even sooner than that, when the Model 3 hit. So, Tesla has been doing this over the past 5 years with no government help with regards to incentivizing, consumers to purchase their vehicles. And so, when it comes to the charging standards, like, great government, thanks for the help, but like, we're already using the sales proceeds from our electric vehicles and our other business revenue channels to actually be able to pull out this massive EV charging infrastructure deployment. And so as a result, they have the fundamentals on what's feeding the revenue source, or the expense, the pocket for the actual superchargers themselves to actually be in the ground. So CCS, the SAE standard, is too slow. It's too limited by the specs and the manufacturers. There's too much regulatory bureaucracy and red tape in getting those things in. I mean, if you look at Tesla, what they've already done with the version, how fast they moved from version 1 to they're actually looking at version 4 right now. Out in Norway, you look at their megawatt charging systems that they have for their semis. You look at what they're going to be introducing with the Cybertruck. It's just you can do so much more with less. And you look at the size dimensions and the weight compatibility. I mean, everything with the plug-in charge standard. I mean, it's a no-brainer. This decision was absolutely the nail in the coffin, I believe, in those standards. And so the good thing is, look, we already got a museum of charging stations on the wall. We got a museum of charging connectors, and so now, and I guess we'll have to add the CCS as one of those pieces. But in all fun, one of the things our audience members have asked us is, what about the charging, the Magic Dock? I was like, okay, well, let's see what's going on with the Magic Dock. Like, we want to say, is Tesla the retrofit on Magic Docks? Will that be the ultimate solution, or what will come first, like the charging, like the Magic Dock, or will the charging inlet inside the Fords and the Chevys or the GMs come first? We don't know. I would imagine, based on the speed at which you can deploy the Magic Docks across the network of over 12,000 charging stations that Tesla has right now. I'm almost curious to say that I'm just thinking I don't know what's going to come first. Like, we know that it takes like two guys and about like maybe $1,200 per supercharger site to retrofit that supercharger site from you know all things Tesla standard to the Magic Dock. So, or at least we can anticipate. We don't really know that for sure, but we definitely have seen like the ease at which those station sites can be converted. So if Tesla does decide to do the conversion on the Magic Dock, I would imagine that they would be able to hit more faster. But I think Tesla's ultimate play is for GM and for Ford to get those charging inlets in their vehicles. That's my anticipation. So I think they've proven that their charging stations work and they're compatible with the Magic Dock. But if you notice, with 9 Magic Docks, out in New York and 2 in California, that were debuted, 4 months ago, there have been no other reports or pop-ups of additional Magic Docks. They've just kind of, it was almost like a pilot program that just kind of went stealth. It just went dormant. Um, so what does that do on their end? I think Tesla's play is to ultimately get those charging inlets in those vehicles, and now Tesla has a means of being able to, I would say, sink their teeth in a little bit on the electric charging side of things with those brands. And so, if GM and Ford announced it, basically now, if you're a major automaker like, let's say, Dodge, Stellantis, Volvo, uh, I doubt if Volkswagen will do it, but and you don't announce that you're moving to the NACS standard, you're pretty much already antiquated technology, unfortunately. So, man, it's really exciting times. I don't know. This is, you know, if you look at the CCS standard as a whole, the segmented assembly part model, where they're sourcing various different components all over the U.S. to be able to put in these stations. They all have to speak the same language. They all have to, the circuitry, all of that stuff has to be branded. Then you have to have a software to actually run it. You see the segmented assembly model to build these charging stations. It just doesn't work. Tesla's fully integrated. They have their own software stack, their own hardware stack. They're manufacturing them out of Buffalo, and you could see what that's doing to the industry to make the adoption of electric vehicles that much ease, and also actually make a good use case for your return on investment. So, just because the means of being able to manufacture a CCS charging station is just it's antiquated segmented assembly parts model type manufacturing, and then you look at the ownership model. It's more of a fragmented ownership model that all of these public charging stations have. Honestly, you may have some charging providers out there like Electrify America and EVgo, but they're far few in between because the cost to deploy this infrastructure is massive. It's massive. Basically, anytime you go to a charging site that has, like, let's say 4 or more superchargers, whether it's superchargers or DC fast chargers, just say $1 million. That's how much it costs in general: time, energy, effort, money, hardware, software, civil, electrical work, permitting, utility. Just say $1 million for each one. That's a lot of money. That's a lot. So, looking at that, licensing the Tesla software API access for the standard, we think is definitely going to be Tesla's play. Everyone's like, oh, this is good for GM. This is great for Ford. But how is Tesla going to make money off of this? And you're dealing with some of the smartest people in the world. Don't think for 1 second that Tesla's not making money on this deal. I mean, there's software stacks, there's API stuff. The thing that you have to understand is that the money that Tesla's making off of the deal is smart money. It's the money on the back end for the software side of things. So I'm hoping that everyone can hear me. If not, we'll probably try to do this later again. It's our first live stream, so bear with. How does it look in the percentage of car sales devoted to supercharger deployment construction? I do think that that's how GM and Ford will look at the cost of putting that infrastructure in place. I think that will be pretty. I think that will be pretty popular for them. I think Tesla is gonna, like, take it easy on them. Like, look, we don't want you guys to have to worry about like an like an imposition or anything like that. It's just like, hey, look, when you put these charging standards in your vehicles, a percentage of vehicles that you sold, some of those profits are gonna, or some of that revenue is gonna have to go towards this building out of more and more of the supercharger network. I think that's what you're gonna see happen in whatever deal or strike agreement. So not only is Tesla going to get money from the construction and the maintenance and the steady kind of everyday operations use of building out that infrastructure, but also the API access to be able to use the infrastructure. I think both of those will come hand in hand. Those are the two bills that I'm anticipating Tesla's going to start raking in addition to creating another moat for itself. A lot of people talked about Tesla's given away their moat when they talked about the supercharging, the Magic Dock, and the, opening up the NACS standard, and that's what makes Tesla so great. Like, no, that's not Tesla's moat. Tesla's goal is to be able to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. That's Tesla's mission. Tesla's moat, if you have anything to do or any inclining around Tesla's moat is their pace of innovation and implementation into how fast they're able to get changes into their assembly lines. Tesla's vertical integration is another moat that they have. No other automobile manufacturer has the vertical integration, assembly and manufacturing model as they do. And then, of course, their software stack with FSD and Dojo. I mean, those three alone are the moats that actually make up Tesla. And I can't even think of, another 4, 5, 6, but I'm pretty sure our audience members can. So overall, I really want to stress the fact that that's this opening does not hurt Tesla at all with regards to the moat. What it does is it accelerates the world's transition to sustainable energy by allowing GM and Ford, these heavy hitting manufacturers, to actually come to the table with a lot more. So basically, what's next? Licensing autopilot FSD to other OEMs. I don't see that. I know a lot of people talk about the licensing part that Tesla can. Now, make no mistake, Tesla can absolutely do it, but the car still has to work. So you can give the car the software, but if the software is not using the same eyes and as you say, ears, that Tesla has to be able to develop and utilize the neural nets and everything else, I don't see the manufacturers being able to license FSD. The only way that they are able to license FSD is if they start putting the cameras in the same positions on the same cars and start wiring the cars with similar things that the FSD model does. So just injecting the FSD software inside there, those vehicles still have to be built with the amount of cameras and I guess you can say maybe LiDAR or sensors that Tesla has used to make that software possible. So that's my opinion on kind of licensing autopilot and FSD stuff. I do think it's actually possible, but these vehicles are going to have to start having the same type of cameras, maybe not same, but maybe the same position of cameras, same visual components on those ends. So will Tesla NACS be able to do vehicle to grid diodes versus transistors? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, we've taken apart the charging stations, both superchargers and AC chargers, and we've I guess if you have diodes in there, it's single one-way charging. If you have transistor, no, sorry, I think it's the other way. If you have transistors, it's single, and diodes, it's I guess multi-directional, bi-directional. I do anticipate that. I think the Highland, the new version of Model 3 that's coming out, the Highland model. I think the Cybertruck. I think a lot of those will have the diodes inside the electronics to be able to allow for bi-directional power transfer. So definitely looking forward for that one to hit the market once we actually find out. But of course, you have Greenlee online that's doing a lot of the software stack, so they'll probably see it software wise before we'll hear of it in the hardware on the hardware side. But Tesla's introducing their newest hardware, in a lot of their vehicles, and that's been kind of a stealth injection in there, and I don't know. I haven't seen anything with regards to the new hardware in these vehicles having the ability to do that. But I would imagine once we see it in the ability inside the vehicles charging systems, then you'll actually start seeing it. And when you have it inside the charging station itself, then I think you have some really good stuff there. So I know that Ford and their customers have done like the Ford Pro Station and all of that stuff to get the vehicle to home integration there. I know Ford's also had some problems with that. They've kind of really piloted a small amount of customers under a program. So it'd be interesting to see where that program goes. If that's basically just gets suffocated or just completely dissolved out. Um, these are all things that are all up in the air. Will the will the Fords and the Chevys have the ability to do preconditioning, decrease wait times, route planner, decrease charging times, increase power version, so forth and so on that Tesla has with their supercharging network? I think that if Tesla allows Ford and GM access to their API on the back end, I don't see any means or any reason why, if Ford's vehicles and GM's vehicles are also connected, I don't see any means why they wouldn't be able to implement a software update to where they can actually start conditioning the batteries. The problem is, I guess, would lie inside the vehicle itself, just to see if the vehicle itself possesses the ability to heat up, like to manipulate the battery management systems to be able to heat up or cool down the batteries when it is approaching a supercharger. So that one would be interesting. I could see definitely Tesla has the ability to do the software and the engineer behind it, but yeah, we'll see. Again, guys, most of the stuff I'm getting questions. Most of the stuff is kind of we haven't seen the final agreements or the details. They are to be determined from the Ford and GM announcements. So we'll be able to know a lot more once. But most of the stuff is all speculation and just kind of strategic. Us kind of looking at the market from inside out. So what's the deal with the two charging ports? Okay, so two charging ports was one of the things that the moment that even before Tesla Porsche Taycan came out with their dual port charging setup. They have, if you look at a Porsche Taycan, they have two charging port doors, one on each side, front driver side, front passenger side. Where I believe one's a simple J1772 charging inlet, and the other one's uh, a CCS charging inlet that has the ability to do J1772 and CCS. And so I think they did that just to give the Porsche a little bit of flexibility with regards to the positioning, the parking parameters, and how you park the car, where you park the car, relevant to being in a bind or access to 18-foot cable, charging cable. So I think that with the two ports there, I think that GM and Ford will continue to use the CCS model and continue to manufacture the CCS model on the front driver side. But I think the NACS standard they'd have to figure out some means of being able to implement that in the driver's rear tail light. And I think Tesla will probably talk to their teams, and I guarantee they probably already have, with regards to the benefits of actually putting the port there when it comes to tripping hazards and ultimately like the best design layout for I guess you can call it supercharger sites, so forth and so on. So I think I do see Ford and GM having two charging ports. It's not a lot of additional copper. Yeah, it's another port on the battery. They can have some sort of split adapter or something like that when it comes to power transfer, because you're only going to be able to use one at a time. You're not going to be able to use both of them at the same time. I think the CCS will ultimately still allow, maybe for Ford Lightning, so the Ford Pro charging station, maybe vehicle to home integrations, but I think ultimately I do see a transition. I'm hoping, this is what my hope is that you have the CCS charging standard in driver's front, the NACS standard driver's tail light, And as the supercharger network grows and as implementation of AC charging grows and the ease and the just a better system overall on that charging standard, I think you will see maybe possibly 2027, 2028, these manufacturers just completely cut the cord on CCS altogether, if and only if Tesla has the ability to do the vehicle to grid, vehicle to X, vehicle to load stuff. And make no mistake, I think Tesla definitely does see the value of that, as they are, like I talked about, they're a freaking electrical company now with their, the Tesla Energy and their power packs and their mega packs and the power walls and all of that stuff. So a lot of things that Tesla's doing with their auto bidder software and their Texas, Tesla Electric, them being an actual utility company out here in Texas right now. I mean, they literally are a utility company out here right now in Texas. It's fun. So these are really exciting times. Uh, the Tesla NACS adapters. Everyone keeps talking about Tesla NACS adapters. I'm assuming that Ford and GM will supply their customers that have purchased EVs with a Tesla adapter, I guess a CCS adapter, so that way those cars can actually use the charger. But I don't think that's going to happen until they, or that actually may happen, and that'll give the current fleet of users the ability to tap into that once the deal is signed and sealed and everything else. I just think sending everybody adapters is a lot easier than retrofitting for the Magic Dock to be able to get those cars plugged into the supercharger network. So I think you're going to see a lot of the adapters being shipped to people that currently own those EVs. And if they want to use them, great. They're going to have to download the Tesla app and do all of that stuff, just as they would, as the whole Magic Dock thing. But we'll see on that integration. I believe that would be a lot cheaper, a lot easier, as opposed to having Tesla sit there and go, start retrofitting all of their superchargers, to have the Magic Dock port. Supercharger layout design integration via inlet location. So supercharger layout is unique. The layout of superchargers and the design of superchargers, they follow kind of a set schematic, a set plan based on where that charging port inlet is actually located inside the EV, which in Teslas is the driver's rear taillight. And so Teslas basically are known for setting up their supercharger sites and design to where you can backload in a majority of these sites or these stalls and these parking spots. And then of course they have, one or two for the people that just traditionally like to the front load in to a parking space. And so that's normally you'll see, 9 parking stalls where you would back in, and then you would see one where you would front load in. And then every now and then you'll see one that's kind of like on its own, kind of almost like an island supercharger stall. And that's basically for people that are traveling with cargo or, they have some sort of RV behind them, or they're trailering something that way if they're towing something, they can easily pull in. They don't have to sit there and unattach the trailer, go charge, and then go back and reattach the trailer. They can actually pull in, get a quick charge, and be on their way without disrupting the overall layout of the existing, 9 or 10 charging stalls that are kind of grouped together in a row, nice, tight, compact, delivering power, efficient as possible. So I do see that there may be, but I think the supercharger layout design, I think that's only going to be a question, maybe for the next year or so with the adapters. But once the actual charging inlet is actually injected into those vehicles, that's it. It's game over. Tesla's just going to continue with the design and work out the kinks from there. So, and again, we talked about Tesla's moat not being their charging; it's their pace of innovation. It's their speed of implementation on assembly lines and injecting their engineering prowess into everything they do. I mean, that's like Tesla University. I mean, this is some cool stuff. Their vertical integration, of course, their software stack. Those are all Tesla's moats. Um, so the last thing we have here is, what about wireless charging standard implementation? I don't know. I mean, you can see during Investor Day, um, Rebecca Tanucci, she released a little teaser at the end of her presentation, where we saw a wireless charging pad, like in a residential setting with kind of a different looking charging station there set up. So I believe, possibly even the Highland Model 3. Um, I would assume the Cybertruck and maybe the hardware 4 all have the hardware and the I'm hoping the hardware to be able to implement the mist of wireless charging. I mean, wireless charging is where it's going. Sorry, people. I know we're talking about cables and all of that stuff, but I think for level 2 charging, for the most part, AC charging, 11 kilowatts, maybe 20 kilowatts. I think wireless charging is definitely going to seed out the overall extensive need for DC fast charging eventually, maybe in 2050, 2040. But I think there's still going to be a use case for the DC fast charging rollout. But I think it's the same parallel to like why we don't have, you know, 400 kilowatt hour battery packs inside these cars. It's not conducive after a certain mileage to actually have batteries there, because you're not really using those batteries in the form that they would be beneficial for you. So I think overall, I think this is checkmate. I mean, if you look at Ford and GM and the power that they possess with regards to their volume and their electrification plans, them seeding and getting this NACS charging standard and this charging inlet in their vehicles, it concretes Tesla. Tesla's not going anywhere. It definitely allows Ford and GM to make sure that they can focus on producing more EVs, more quality EVs. And in a sense, the Ford and GM folks that actually possess Ford and GM, I think it'll actually help their sales with regards to now I can not only have access to the Electrify America or the regular, abundance of J1772 level 2, maybe AC charging across town, but I also have the ability to use the Tesla supercharging network. So I have means to be able to do both. And that might be really the nail in the coffin for the whole range anxiety thing. Like no matter where you go, no matter what, all you have to do is just find a charging station. Who cares about the port? You got the port stuff on the vehicle, so you'll figure that out. But it's definitely better to have than to be stranded and not have. So I think overall, I think everyone heard the Ford announcement and everyone was kind of in shock. Uh, you listen to a couple podcasts, you listen to a couple of news interviews and people with their remarks on that. And I think it was a really good, smart move by Ford. And I'm appreciative of Jim Farley and Ford team actually having the courage to come to acceptance and know that, you know what, you're right. In order for us to scale this out, we're having too many problems in the commercial sector, private commercial sector, with regards to these charging station providers, and none of them are taking it serious. None of them are all in on this. How are those teams being funded, and what are their plans on servicing, planned obsolescence, antiquated technology, charging systems, payment processing systems? Like they're looking at all of this and they're just like, this is way too complex. It can't be this complicated. It's got to be easy. So when you look at first principles again, everything that the foundation that Tesla's built on, and Elon's been preaching, and how he's injected that mentality into the Tesla, workforce, and the ethos that SpaceX. I mean, you're going to even see it inside Twitter. It's going to be funny when we look at Twitter 5 years from now. But overall, I think it's really exciting news. It'll be interesting what happens to the other charging station manufacturers via ChargePoint, EVgo, charging providers, Electrify America, Juicebox, ENLX, Wallbox. Where do those guys go? What happens on the AC side of things? What happens on the home charging side of things? Right? My car, if Teslas, Fords, and Chevys now all have the NACS standard, Tesla's AC charger is the cheapest on the market. Cheapest, $450. The next best competitor, somewhere around $750. So $300 more. So you're looking at, possibly 40% savings 45% savings just from going to the AC charging standard with Tesla's wall connector. It's one of the best built, most reliable, just easier to install as an electrical contractor. It makes everything so much easier. There's like smart ways of doing things and there's hard way of doing things. And I think GM and Ford realized that they've been doing this hard way. They've having this hard way of doing things, and their customer ultimately is the ones they're expressing the hard way of doing it. It can't be this complex. Tesla's making it so easy. Yes, because Teslas go back, so they go back to first principles. They actually make things. They engineer and they design their products to be able to be as easy and consumer friendly as possible. That, I think, is Tesla's moat. First principles, thinking, the pace of innovation, their design, their engineering. Are you kidding me? Huh. I can keep going. We should make another episode on just Tesla's like moat, on what makes them unique. What's their IP? Jeez. Go fish, huh? All right, that's it, guys. My name is Joseph Barletta. I'm the founder and CEO of Smart Charge America. Again, this is our YouTube podcast channel. Some really good information out. We're going to try to bring the live streams to you guys. Trying to kind of pilot this, try to figure out what's the best format, what's the best placement, where we can get our sound stage, kind of what works best. We're doing what we can, so bear with us. We love you guys. Thank y'all so much for jumping in and tuning in with us. Hopefully, you guys got a little bit better of an insight on like where we are seeing the industry move from a charging station provider perspective and installer, of course. And so it'll be interesting to see. The times will tell. But I don't know. I guess it's ultimately a race to the finish, right? Yeah. Whether it is to be utopia or Bolivian for some of these companies will be a touch and go race, relay race right up to the final moment. So credit that to our good old buddy, Buckminster Fuller. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much. Appreciate you jumping in. And we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.